A lot of money going to be doled out for the Giants organization. The two main cogs, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. You make your money, Daniel Jones going a long way toward getting that big time, big money contract extension. Obviously, they want to lock up Saquon Barkley as well. They only have one franchise tag.
This is one of the most backward situations to me in the entire NFL. I mean, originally, when the New York Giants went down this road, I was all for it. I even applauded them for making the decision that they were about to make. But it seems like someone is overplaying their hand here. So we need to talk about this before anything goes down, because the New York Giants may either make a brilliant decision or truly a horrific mistake. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. I also wanted to give you guys this opportunity to let me know in the comment section if there's any team that you'd like me to cover that you feel has been neglected recently. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! So I've made almost $5,000 playing this game over the past couple months and posting my picks and selections onto my Instagram story for you guys to follow them. And the game that I'm obviously talking about is Prize Picks. Right now, when you use my promo code Mikerophone, they'll match up to $100 of your initial deposit with another $100. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, yesterday I had Killian Hayes getting less than 21 points, rebounds, and assists. You went into the third quarter with 18, and he finished the game with 20.5. I can't tell you how euphoric that feeling was when I saw that I was able to make $210 off of a pick that came within 0.5 of not hitting. So if you want to check out Prize Picks, make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone for a free 100% deposit match up to $100. And follow me on Instagram if you want to follow my picks on Instagram. Mike check 1212. What's going on, everybody? Last year, I made a video on the New York Giants truly having some sort of secret plan. Back then, 1 year ago, there were all sorts of rumors about what the future of the quarterback position was going to be for the New York Giants. You have to bear in mind at this point, Daniel Jones looked like a bona fide draft bust. And although you could make the argument that this is a man that didn't necessarily have the opportunity to succeed or thrive, he really didn't show you a body of work that gave you confidence to actually want to build a team around him. Now bear in mind, he was only 24 years old. He's not necessarily Mitchell Trubisky, but he definitely wasn't Patrick Mahomes. He did possess some interesting tools, like he is more athletic than meets the eye, and he's shown flashes of potential, but also bear in mind that he had to go through 2 head coaches before the New York Giants got him a 3rd head coach, and it seemed like the entire hiring process for the New York Giants was based around getting Daniel Jones the right head coach to get the most out of him. And ultimately, Brian Daboll did that. Yeah, he didn't turn Daniel Jones into the next coming of Josh Allen, but considering how thin the New York Giants wide receiver core was, partially due to some horrible decisions that they've made, such as signing Kenny Golladay to a 4-year, $72 million contract, which, by the way, they did cut recently, and also drafting Kadarius Toney and then trading him for peanuts on the dollar. Congrats on your Super Bowl ring, Kadarius Toney. It seems like the Giants may have traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs for the sole purpose of defeating their NFC East rival. Jokes aside, Daniel Jones had a very impressive season this year, and it looked like the New York Giants already were planning on pulling the plug from Daniel Jones. They declined his 5th-year option, which kind of bit them in the a little bit, because that's 1 year less of his rookie scale contract that you don't get anymore. It's the whole purpose why you want to draft a quarterback in the 1st round. If you notice, Jalen Hurts is currently negotiating his contract extension, but that kicks in immediately because he doesn't get a 5th-year option. He wasn't drafted in the 1st round. The New York Giants drafted Daniel Jones in the 1st round, so they had that opportunity, but they declined it because he had a very unimpressive first 3 years of his career. While in his 4th year, it seemed like he kicked it into a brand new gear. Daniel Jones threw for 3,200 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, threw for the highest completion percentage of his career, 67%. That's good enough to be a starting QB in the NFL, without a doubt, especially when you have a strong running game behind you. Giants were good enough to win 9 games this season. They went 9-6-1. They were even able to get into the playoffs and win a game. Hell, their season ended at the same time as the Dallas Cowboys season did, right in the thick of the race. As a result, the New York Giants have some very very challenging decisions that they have to make. Not only does Daniel Jones's contract expire, but they also need to work out a contract extension with Saquon Barkley. And this is where things get a little hairy. You see, while it does make a lot of sense to pay your quarterback an exorbitant amount of money, in the case of Daniel Jones, the philosophy originally was, okay, we have a quarterback that clearly isn't a top 5 QB in the NFL, clearly isn't a top 10 QB in the NFL. New York Giant fans, if you believe Daniel Jones is a top 10 QB in the NFL, let me know where. I really want to know what your list is. Let me know in the comment section down below, because with all due respect, not a top 10 QB. It's a very interesting strategy. I thought their plan was to extend Daniel Jones and not necessarily pay him a top 5 or top 10 quarterback contract, and then try to build around that and see what he develops into. It's a strategy that I don't believe we've ever seen in the NFL. We've seen Tom Brady do it, but we know what kind of talent Tom Brady possesses, and Tom Brady also had the means to pull this off. He was influenced by Bill Belichick in the Patriot way, but he also had a wife that was one of the top earners in all of modeling. He could afford to take a pay cut, and he did, and I think that's a huge contributing factor to the Super Bowls that he's won. So the original philosophy of the New York Giants was, okay, we took a gamble on Daniel Jones. We didn't just cut him loose the moment we brought in a new regime. We didn't just write him off as a draft bust. We decided to bring him in, get a quarterback guru to really try to develop him to the best of our abilities and see what we have in him. So you would think that Daniel Jones would have tremendous gratitude that he's not signing Marcus Mariota and Mitchell Trubisky-like contracts, and is actually in the discussion to get a $25 or $30 million contract annually. This is where he's overplaying his hand, because he's not looking for that. He's looking for something way, way crazier. Not just Daniel Jones either, because Saquon Barkley also is seeking a larger contract as a result of his performance this past year. Saquon Barkley was one of the most mesmerizing halfbacks coming out of Penn State. I absolutely fell in love with his talent. I don't know if he was worthy of a number 2 overall selection. I mean, I don't mean to play Captain Hindsight here. Personally, I would have drafted Quentin Nelson and then selected Nick Chubb in the second round, or traded up for Nick Chubb, but whatever. He's one of the most fascinating and entertaining running backs in the NFL. I love watching this man play. The issue is he hasn't necessarily been available every time, and when he has been available, there's been years where he's had some lukewarm production. A lot of it has to do with his offensive line and how incompetent his head coach is. You see, in his rookie season, Saquon went crazy, over 1,300 rush yards, 11 touchdowns, crushed it in the receiving game as well, over 700 yards receiving, 91 receptions. In his sophomore year, once again, big factor in the receiving game. Not as much as his rookie year, but he still had very impressive rushing totals, over 1,000 yards rushing, 4.6 yards per carry. And then the year after, 2020, he was injured. 2021, he played, but he was not nearly as effective, 3.7 yards per carry. They decided to kick Joe Judge to the curb, and then Saquon Barkley has the best season, or one of the best seasons of his career. Over 1,300 yards rushing, 4.4 yards per carry, and was once again a huge factor in the receiving game. Well, not as much as his first 2 years, but still a respectable 57 receptions for 338 yards. And now, this is where it gets juicy, because the New York Giants have 2 players that are making some pretty bold requests. The first one being Saquon Barkley. Apparently, New York isn't likely to pay Saquon Barkley much more than $12.5 million per season, and there's a chance that Saquon will not return to the team. Here's the thing, I don't put that much stock in
whether Saquon's gonna return to the team, or Saquon's gonna leave, or Saquon is...
I don't put a lot of stock into that. The truth is, this is one of the deepest running back free agency classes we've had in some time. Top of that, this is one of the deepest running back draft classes that we've had in some time. This was a bad time to play hardball if you're a running back. But even furthermore, let's assume that the New York Giants want to win a Super Bowl. I'm assuming all 32 teams in the NFL would like to do that. We pulled up this chart recently. If you take a look at this chart, it shows you the Super Bowl winning leading rusher plus base salary since 2009. There is some cheating involved here, but if you take a look, last year was Isaiah Pacheco, $870,000 in base salary. Then was Cam Akers, $890,000 in base salary in 2021. Leonard Fournette recently got cut by the Buccaneers and was signed as a free agent by the Buccaneers in 2020, made $2 million. The year before, the Chiefs' leading rusher, Damian Williams, made $1 million in base salary. Then there's the New England Patriots, Sony Michel, who made $480,000. LeGarrette Blount appears here multiple times. The last time was with the Eagles in 2017, where he made $900K. In 2016, with the Patriots, when he made $760K. And then, of course, in 2014, he made $730,000. Now, what's interesting is, in 2013, you see Percy Harvin is on this list. He made $2.5 million. In reality, Marshawn Lynch made significantly more money as the main running back for the Seahawks, but Percy Percy Harvin was the leading rusher in the Super Bowl. And you have Ray Rice at $2 million and Ahmad Bradshaw at $1.5 million. When I saw this, I got really pissed off as a Cowboy fan because of what Ezekiel Elliott did to us. But in this particular instance, man, you don't have to necessarily be a genius to know that paying your running back this amount of money, paying him $12.5 million in base salary, is not necessarily a pathway to success here. Now, when you consider Saquon Barkley's injury history, when you consider how volatile he's been in terms of production, yeah, he had a very successful season under Brian Daboll, but you don't know what the future is going to look like. Do you really feel comfortable paying this man $12.5 million a year annually? Do you think New York Giants fans in a year from now or in 2 years from now are going to look back at this moment and say,
"Oh, thank God that we paid Saquon Barkley $12.5 million a year annually"?
I can't imagine a world where that happens, and I love Saquon Barkley, and I hope he gets a bag. If I was the general manager, I definitely would have some reservations about it. Now, the first tweet I showed you was a relatively old report, and you don't necessarily know how things are going to go. Saquon has already seemed very realistic about what his future is going to look like, and if you ask my personal prediction here, best way to play this is just franchise tag Saquon. He just had a really good year. Running backs aren't that effective that consistently, so just franchise tag him next year. He just turned 26 years old. If he could repeat it, then great. I don't think this is worth extending him for 3 to 4 years, in my opinion. What about Daniel Jones? Well, Daniel Jones wants $45 million a year. Reportedly, apparently, this is what we're hearing out there. We don't know if that's what his agent's putting out there. We don't know if that's what the New York Giants are putting out there. You know, there's a whole game of smoke and mirrors here. $45 million a year in comparison to what quarterbacks have gotten recently, like Aaron Rodgers. You guys know his contract's $50 million annually. Then you have Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Deshaun Watson's insane contract where it's 5 years, $230 million guaranteed. None of those quarterbacks made it to the playoffs, by the way. I'd just like to make a note of that. Daniel Jones might bring that up in negotiations, by the way. What I'm trying to say here is, normally, if you were playing like a top 5 QB, fine. But then you realize $45 million a year annually is how much Patrick Mahomes makes. And then you kind of just scratch your head at that type of request. So what does the New York Giants general manager think of this? Well, Joe Schoen, who, by the way, I have to give a huge amount of props to this general manager. He's absolutely crushed it so far for the New York Giants. This is coming from a Dallas Cowboys fan. He turned this team around in literally one offseason. As a matter of fact, a good example of this is Giants players apparently really disliked former coach Joe Judge, and Brian Daboll is a complete 180. Daboll's respectful of the players' time, and they also feel like he is willing to listen and collaborate with them. I kind of got that vibe from the very beginning of the season. If you remember in week 1 when he got his first win with the New York Giants and he was dancing in the locker room with them, it seems just like yesterday that it was week 1 of the 2022 NFL season, but I digress. This is what he had to say about the situation. You're starting to feel the time crunch a little bit. I wish we were a little bit closer on a deal than what we are right now. But again, there's still time. We're going to circle back up again today at some point and meet with his representatives. This came out yesterday, and a part of me was a little concerned because it took some time to work on this video, and my concern was I was going to wake up this morning and Daniel Jones was going to agree to a contract extension with the New York Giants. So you can imagine my surprise when the exact opposite happened. I mean, you have to bear in mind that Tuesday is the franchise tag deadline. I don't think the Giants are going to use the franchise tag on Daniel Jones. It's going to go to Saquon Barkley. I think that's the intelligent thing to do. And so far, the New York Giants front office has proven to me that they make very, very intelligent decisions, at least since the brand new regime came in. So you can imagine my surprise when I woke up this morning and found out that according to Pat Leonard of the New York Daily News, Daniel Jones doesn't want $45 million per year annually anymore. He wants more than that. Yeah, take a look at this. According to Pat Leonard, Daniel Jones's representatives are asking for more than $45 million per year in contract negotiations with the New York Giants. Dude, I have to admit, at the very beginning, I thought this was just a negotiation tactic. You know, you throw a very high number out there, and then you settle somewhere in between what the team wanted to sign you to an extension for. I don't know what they're doing at this point. I definitely think they're overplaying their hand. I think there needs to be a degree of gratitude to the New York Giants front office for not just kicking Daniel Jones to the curb. There's a decent amount of teams that would have happily given up on Daniel Jones if his circumstances were slightly different. Instead, he had a team literally go out this offseason and get a head coach that would be focused on his development and solely his development, asking playing for over $45 million per year following that. I mean, one, I think it comes off as a little bratty and unappreciative. If this guy was making backup QB money, he would get anywhere from $5 to like maybe $10 million a year. He's in the range of $25 to $40 million a year, and that's because the New York Giants didn't give up on him and wanted to give him a fair chance. And they built a team around him, even though he only showed some slight flashes of his potential. Nothing too crazy, but he showed he could be an average to an above average QB prior to the season. So this is a very interesting way to repay the New York Giants. You could get yourself Derek Carr for about $35 million this year in free agency if you want. Is Daniel Jones a better quarterback than Derek Carr? That's debatable. You could really debate that. I don't necessarily think they're far off from one another, but that's where you have to start thinking. I originally thought that the New York Giants plan was to pay Daniel Jones something like $30 million a year and then invest the rest of that capital in trying to get him the best players possible to complement him. And I really like that strategy because we've never seen that before. But it seems like Daniel Jones has other ideas. To give you an idea, paying Daniel Jones about $30 million would put him between what Matt Ryan makes for the Colts and what Ryan Tannehill makes for the Tennessee Titans. You put him at like $30 million, man, I'd like to see how that team turns out. I mean, it'd be very interesting to see what the New York Giants' path to success is here. $45 million? You're paying him more than Josh Allen? You're paying him more than Dak Prescott? You're paying him more than Matthew Stafford? Jared Goff? I mean, I don't know. If you're a Giants fan, how do you feel about that? You see, the New York Giants are in a situation where if they make the right moves, they could actually build something special. They already nailed their head coaching hire of Brian Dable, but they could also mess it up horrifically, make a terrible mistake, and ruin their entire team. It could go either way. If you franchise tag Saquon and you sign Daniel Jones to a contract that makes sense, maybe even a short-term contract that makes sense if you guys don't trust each other and you don't trust his development, and that's one thing. If you overpay both of these players, you guys are going to be cellar dwellers year after year after year, and I could guarantee it 100%. There's no way Daniel Jones will even make it to the playoffs if you're paying him $45 million a year, and if you pay Saquon Barkley $12 million a year annually, clip this, save this, flag this, whatever you want, they will not make it to the playoffs if you're paying an injury-prone running back who's fantastic when he's available, by the way, $12.5 million a year annually, and you're paying a quarterback that, in my opinion, isn't even in the top 10 as a quarterback, Patrick Mahomes money. And I don't think you need to be some sort of football genius to agree with that. But I'd like to hear what you have to say, man. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.